Chapter 228. Gu Mingming thought for a while. Including Bailey, who had just mated 2 days ago, there should be a total of 7. So she answered Elvis honestly. Elvis asked again. Then do you know how many partners Maya has? Gu Mingming thought for a while and smiled awkwardly. Then, she shook her head honestly and said, I am really not that close to Maya. She used to be with Nina. Although she did not bully Sandy directly, she did watch from the side for a long time. Sometimes, silence is scarier than violence. She is also a half-orc, and I can understand that she does not have the ability to protect Sandy. But I can't accept her staying quietly by Nina's side. It's just that I don't want to offend anyone, and cause the 4 females in the tribe to be at odds with each other. By then, the entire Saint Nazir will not have peace. So, although I don't want to form a grudge with her, I'm not too close to her either. Elvis brought Gu Mingming's little hand to his lips and kissed it. He said, Don't make things difficult for yourself. You don't have to socialize with people you don't like. If anyone has any dissatisfaction, tell them to look for me. Gu Mingming fiddled with Elvis's fingers and said sweetly in her heart, But I am the wife of the tribe leader now. I have to look at the big picture, right? Elvis smiled and looked at Gu Mingming with a pair of affectionate eyes. He said, You just take care of yourself. I will look after the big picture. Gu Mingming smiled and twisted her body. Then, she suddenly raised her head and pecked Elvis's face. She said, You have a sweet mouth. Let me reward you. Elvis licked his lips and thought to himself, Maybe he should go and eat more yellow gravy? Wouldn't he get more rewards this way? Gu Mingming was a little shy. She exclaimed and asked, Then how many partners does Maya have? Elvis answered, 15. Gu Mingming's mouth turned into an O so wide that an egg could fit in it. She repeated in confusion, How many? 15? Elvis nodded and gently lifted her little chin to close her mouth. He then continued to ask, Then guess again, how many partners does Nina have? Gu Mingming thought for a while. There was only Quentin whom she could call by name, plus Leah who should have mated by now. There were 2 of them. There were 7 that were injured by Leah at Sandy's doorstep previously. Adding the one she rode on every time she went out, there should be 10 of them. Every time, there would be some males that Gu Mingming could not remember the faces of. So there should be 17 to 18 of them. Gu Mingming thought for a while, then stretched out 2 fingers and said, 20? Elvis shook his head. Gu Mingming stretched out another finger. 30? Elvis still shook his head. Gu Mingming clenched her teeth and stretched out another finger. 40. Elvis raised his eyebrows and answered, 43. What the heck? Gu Mingming was truly shocked for once. There were 43 of them. If he took one a day, he wouldn't be able to finish his turn in a month. Elvis pushed Gu Mingming's little chin again and said, Other than Quentin and a few partners who were stronger than her, I'm afraid she herself doesn't even remember the names of those males who had pledged their loyalty to her. In her eyes, those males are the hunters who provide food during the rainy season, the continuous supply of water during the dry season, and the stored food during the winter. Gu Mingming sighed in her heart and felt that it was not worth it for Nina's partners. Gu Mingming's heart twitched as she thought of Leah. Aside from the topic, the first day of 2018, I've decided to treat my babies better. It's midnight today, to celebrate the new year. Chapter 229. The moment Gu Mingming thought of Leah, she forced herself to divert her attention. Now that she had already mated with Elvis, no matter what the rules were in the beast world, at least she herself could not accept the so-called polygamy system. Mental infidelity was also considered infidelity. Even if others did not know, Gu Mingming knew that she could not get past herself. So she took a deep breath and changed the topic. But I don't see any partner marks on Nina's body. That's because she's a female that was banished from the tribe. Elvis snorted in disdain, then continued. Nina was originally the only complete female in her previous tribe, but a half-orc female accidentally gave birth to a complete female cub. That cub quickly displayed her kindness and beauty, attracting the attention of the new generation of males in the tribe. Nina felt that her position was threatened, so she asked Quentin to kill that pair of mother and daughter. Gu Mingming was so angry that she could not find another word to express her anger. Damn it, was Nina's brain filled with maggots? She already had 43 partners, and she still killed a child because of jealousy? Elvis nodded his head, indicating that it was true. Then he continued. Quentin was originally very strong, and with the advantage of being able to fly, sneak attacks were his trump card. Taking advantage of the fact that the males of the family were unprepared, he grabbed the mother and daughter, flew into the sky, and then dropped them to their deaths. When the female died, the males would die from the backlash of the mating contract. So that entire family died just like that. Gu Mingming said in disbelief. I always knew that Nina had a twisted personality, but I didn't expect her to be so twisted. Just because her child was beautiful, she had to kill her entire family. Pervert. Elvis caressed Gu Mingming's little face gently. So although she was a precious complete female, her original tribe did not dare to keep her anymore. In the beast world, no matter what mistakes a female committed, they cannot be killed. So Nina herself did not have to pay any price. But Quentin, as the executor, naturally had to go to the platform of the deity's punishment, and Nina's other partners would be executed as accomplices. Gu Mingming truly felt wronged for Nina's partners. Why would they rather be single for 10,000 years than marry such a scourge? Elvis continued. I'm not sure how many partners Nina had at that time, nor did I ask. They only knew that the tribes which doctor had consulted the beast deity, and came to the conclusion that Nina would only be forgiven if her partner died in the same way as the half-orc female's male. Therefore, one of Nina's partners personally gave Nina the talisman water to wash away the mating marks, and watched her drink it without hesitation. Then they watched as the mating marks on her body disappeared bit by bit, and all of them rotted to death bit by bit, until he turned into a pool of blood. The eyes of the partner who gave Nina the water talisman were still looking at Nina affectionately. His last words were, as long as you can live well, that's enough. Then why is Quentin all right? Gu Mingming asked. Because at that time, Quentin had not mated with Nina yet. Nina said that she would only accept Quentin into her family if he killed the mother and daughter for her. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little babies from Xiaoxiang Academy, Siki 924, Ear 7107, QQA 97 Bob 2F, for the flowers, and Wawa Little Frog for the comment votes. Thank you to the little babies who have been accompanying Susu in 2017. Thank you for despising me, ridiculing me, and loving me at the same time. Chapter 230. Gu Mingming was so speechless that she did not know what to say. No wonder Quentin was Nina's first partner. Nina's previous partners had all died because of her. Then how did this scourge come to Saint Nazir? Gu Mingming asked in disdain. Quentin, who came down from the platform of the deity's punishment, mated with Nina as he wished. Then, he brought the banished Nina away from their original tribe. There was a half-orc female in that tribe who was very good friends with the half-orc female who had died. In order to avenge her dead friend, she ordered all her males to block Nina and Quentin outside the tribe. Quentin's wings were injured in the battle, and he could no longer fly. Then he came to Saint Nazir. At that time, Saint Nazir only had 2 half-orc females, Sandy and Maya. Although Nina was notorious, she was still a precious complete female. In addition to Quentin's outstanding abilities, Leah suggested that I take them in. Gu Mingming laid quietly on Elvis's knees and listened to his story. She did not interrupt and just listened quietly. Elvis trusted Lee's judgment very much, so he took Nina in without any hesitation. The truth also proved that Lee's decision solved almost half of Saint Nazir's mating problems. Elvis tidied Gu Mingming's hair and continued. Because of that special water, Nina could no longer brand the mark of a male on her body after mating. This was the punishment from the beast deity. She could no longer receive the protection of the beast deity. As for Quentin, although Leah healed his wings and allowed him to fly temporarily, it was impossible for him to lift heavy objects into the sky again. So when he went to assassinate you, he did not throw you down from the sky. You escaped because of that, but you still stood up for Quentin like a fool. Gu Mingming thought about it, and felt that her actions were indeed stupid. She laughed at herself and did not reply. Elvis tapped Gu Mingming's little nose and continued. Do you think that a female like Nina would realize if one or a few of her partners were missing? Gu Mingming thought about it and felt a little regretful, but still shook her head. Elvis smiled and said sadly, indeed, she would not realize at all. And Nina's situation is a common situation in the beast world. Sandy is a special case. She only mates with males she likes, so she has very few partners. And this is also one of the reasons why Nina does not like her and always bullies her. Gu Mingming then understood that Elvis was actually answering her earlier question after beating around the bush. If all the females in the beast world were like Nina, then it would be so pitiful for the males. Gu Mingming took the initiative to jump into Elvis's arms and hugged him tightly, saying, You're my husband, the only husband in this world. Gu Mingmeng. Gu Mingmeng Shen Longer Gu Mingmeng, and Gu Air. Gu Long said, Not. Gu God. Shi Li Wang S Long S U 4. U for Chu Mo. Chu Li S Chu. Chapter 231. Gu Mingming opened her mouth and bit Elvis's shoulder harshly. Pain. It was not too painful, but Elvis still kept his mouth shut and did not finish his sentence. Gu Mingming bit so hard that her cheeks hurt, but she only left a shallow bite mark on Elvis's shoulder. She rubbed her sore cheeks in frustration, then glared at Elvis angrily and said, If you dare to die outside, I will knock my head against the wall and die in this cave. I will haunt you even as a ghost, twist your ear and ask you, where did you get the guts to abandon me? It was the first time in Elvis's life that he was attacked, but he did not crush the other party to death. What was even more amazing was that he could not feel any anger at all. Instead, a sweet feeling filled his heart. He hugged Gu Mingming in his arms and said gently, I am very strong. For you, I will become even stronger. Gu Mingming then smiled and kissed the place where she bit him just now. She said, That's a good boy. Today is after all our big day of mating. It's so inauspicious to die. I want you to live with me for a long time. Elvis said and touched Gu Mingming's little head lovingly, saying, Xiao Meng, you have to promise me one thing. Gu Mingming tilted her head and looked at Elvis. Elvis paused for a moment and continued, If one day I really meet with some danger that I can't come back from, don't knock yourself to death. You have to protect yourself well and replace me to live for a long time. Do you understand? Gu Mingming was angry and turned away, ignoring Elvis. Elvis hugged her from behind, and his voice was still gentle. With a hint of pleading, he said, Only you can make me be willing to risk my life in a battle. You live well, that is my biggest wish. Promise me, at least, let me die in peace. Gu Mingming got angrier the more she heard. She turned around and pulled Elvis's ear, asking, What? We just made it, and you're already planning to make me a widow. I told you not to say it, but you still insisted. If I don't let you know how powerful I am, you'll think that I'm made of paper, right? Elvis cooperated and cried out in pain, begging for mercy that he would never do it again. Only then did Gu Mingming let go. She looked at Elvis's reddened ears and rubbed them with heartache. Are you stupid? Won't you run away if I pinch your ears? Elvis held onto her little hand that was rubbing his ear and pulled it to his chest. Then he smiled and said, But I don't want to leave you, not even one step. Gu Mingming smiled and leaned into Elvis's arms. Rumble, rumble. A familiar yet awkward sound came from Gu Mingming's stomach. Gu Mingming clutched her stomach and looked up at Elvis with an eager smile. You must be hungry. I'll go cook. Elvis did not stop Gu Mingming. With his appetite, the food Gu Mingming made could not fill him up. But he did not want to tell Gu Mingming about this, because he could save more food for her. Gu Mingming ran into the depths of the cave happily. Elvis had carried her here a few times, so she probably knew where everything was placed. Roasted sweet potatoes, sweet and delicious roasted sweet potatoes. Gu Mingming squatted at one side and picked 2 moderately sized sweet potatoes from the pile of sweet potatoes that were as high as a small mountain. She was prepared to put them into the fire pit to roast later. Fire. Gu Mingming suddenly thought of something. This was the depths of the cave, and the light from the fire at the entrance could not possibly shine in. Then Gu Mingming lowered her head to look at the 2 sweet potatoes in her hands. She could even clearly see the cracks on the skin of the sweet potatoes. F******. Golden finger. Aside from the topic, Gu Mingming's first golden finger, night vision was activated because of her mating. To celebrate, she made a small scene. Elvis hugged Gu Mingming and sat in front of the cave, looking up at the sky. Gu Mingming pulled Elvis's hand and said, "Hubby, count the stars with me." Elvis nodded and looked at the dazzling stars in the sky. He counted slowly. 1, 2, 3. Gu Mingming looked at Elvis's hard work and suddenly laughed. "Forget it. You're too stupid and not suitable to count the stars. How about this? I'll count the stars and you count the moon." Chapter 232. Gu Mingming held a sweet potato in each hand and shouted loudly with her bare feet. "Ah!" She dragged her voice as she ran towards Elvis. Elvis was shocked by Gu Mingming's roar. By right, there should not be any danger in the cave, so why was she screaming so miserably? Elvis's actions were much faster than Gu Mingming's. So Gu Mingming had only taken a few steps when Elvis had already leaped in. He met her face to face, and without saying a word, he pulled her into his arms and looked around warily. He was sure that this was his cave. There was no smell of outsiders in the cave, not even a bug. But Elvis looked at Gu Mingming suspiciously. She was holding back her big red face and staring straight at him. She held a sweet potato in each hand and gestured excitedly. "Xiao Meng." Elvis patted her back lightly, then took the big sweet potato from her hands and asked, "What's wrong?" Gu Mingming panted heavily and said with a grin, "Look, what's this?" Elvis did not understand but still answered honestly, "Sweet potato." Gu Mingming nodded her head excitedly and said, "Yes, this is a sweet potato." Elvis still did not understand what Gu Mingming was so excited about. He could only look at her quietly and wait for her to catch her breath before continuing. Gu Mingming pointed at the sweet potato at the side and said, "This is a sweet potato." Then, she turned her head and pointed at the other side and said, "There's a pile of potatoes there." Then, she pointed at the other entrance of the cave and said, "That cave has our preserved meat." And Elvis suddenly understood. He hooked Gu Mingming's little chin lightly and turned her little face towards him. Then he asked softly, "Can you see me now?" Gu Mingming nodded her head excitedly and threw away the other sweet potato in her hands. Then, she used her finger to trace Elvis's outline and said softly, "This is Elvis's eyebrows, this is Elvis's nose, these are Elvis's eyes, and here." Gu Mingming held Elvis's face with both hands and offered her own lips. She kissed him lightly and then continued, "This is Elvis's mouth." Elvis smiled as he held the back of Gu Mingming's head and kissed her lips back. He only released her after a long while. "This is the proof that you are the messenger of the beast deity," Elvis said. "What?" Gu Mingming did not understand. Elvis carried Gu Mingming with one hand and easily picked up the 2 sweet potatoes she had picked out with the other hand. He said while carrying Gu Mingming out, "Only the messengers of the beast deity can inherit special abilities from their partners." Gu Mingming's eyes lit up. Gu Mingming frowned, clearly unable to understand. Elvis continued to explain patiently. "Normally, although females are much weaker than males, they still have the usual abilities, such as the ability to see in the dark, the ability to transform, the speed of running, or the sharp claws and teeth. They had all the abilities they inherited from their sire, so they would not inherit their partner's abilities. On the other hand, the messenger of the beast deity is the exact opposite. You did not inherit any abilities from your father beast, so your body is like a vessel still empty. You can inherit some of your partner's characteristics. Chapter 233. Elvis did not know who a husky was, but he heard Gu Mingming call him that a few times. So he thought that maybe in Gu Mingming's original world, a wolf's nickname was a husky. So he nodded his head seriously and said, "I only heard Leah mention a little about the beast deity's messenger being able to inherit the partner's abilities. After all, it was 1,000 years ago, and we don't know to what extent we can inherit it. But you can try and see if you can become a husky." Gu Mingming's lips twitched as she laughed dryly. Then she shook her head and said, "It's better not to try. I don't want to become a dog." Elvis pinched Gu Mingming's little chin and corrected her. "It's a wolf." Gu Mingming twitched her lips and replied, "I don't want to become a wolf either. What if I can't change back after I transform?" Don't. Elvis did not force her. It was already a good thing for him that she had inherited his vision. At least he did not have to worry about her accidentally bumping into anything when she walked in the cave in the future. That was enough. As for speed, strength, and even attacking ability, it was enough for him to have it. It was Gu Mingming's first time trying to move around freely in the dark. The joy and excitement in her heart made her unsatisfied with being carried in Elvis's arms. She struggled to get off the ground, and Elvis did not stop her. He just found 2 thicker pieces of beast skin to wrap her little feet up and let her run around in the cave. He just followed behind her and smiled at how she found everything she saw to be novel. He smiled faintly. She had to admit that Elvis's cave was really huge. Gu Mingming had never been so deep in the past, or rather, she had been here before, but she had no impression of it at all. Because once she left the space near the entrance of the cave, she would be blind with her eyes open. Elvis would carry her wherever he went, and she would not know where she was at all. But it was different now. Everything was so clear to her. This feeling was too realistic, and Gu Mingming was so happy that she was about to fly. Humph, humph, humph. Gu Mingming hummed a tuneless little tune and entered the self-exhilarating mode of exploration. Every time they entered a deeper cave, Gu Mingming would feel a wave of nervousness and excitement. Elvis carried Gu Mingming up gently and asked with a smile, "Aren't you hungry? Do you want to go eat something first and come back later to continue watching?" Gu Mingming was having fun. How could she retreat now? She shook her head and took out 2 pieces of dried fish from her pocket. She placed one in her mouth and chewed it for a while before sending the other piece to Elvis's lips. "I took this from that house just now. This is for you." Elvis did not take the dried fish from Gu Mingming, but instead, he took another bite of the piece that Gu Mingming had bitten off, following the bite marks left by Gu Mingming's teeth. He imitated Gu Mingming's way of chewing, before nodding his head in a serious manner. "Yeah, it's really delicious." Gu Mingming bashfully punched Elvis's chest, then scolded, "Annoying," before running deeper into the cave. For the next half a month, Gu Mingming was in an extremely excited state. She could suddenly see everything in the dark, which made her feel extremely curious. Elvis's acupuncture point was also big enough. She struggled to stay in different rooms every day, and Elvis had to help her carry the small bed that was made from 2 big pieces of solid wood. Although this kind of carrying was meaningless, Elvis felt that nothing was more blissful than accompanying her to do these meaningless things that could make her happy when he saw Gu Mingming's smiling face. Chapter 234. Xiaoming. Elvis laid on the side of the bed and circled Gu Mingming in his arms. His fingers brushed past her cheeks, full of love and cherishing. He hesitated for a moment before finally asking, "Can you sing a song for me too?" Gu Mingming smiled and nodded. Then, she sat up and looked at Elvis. After thinking for a moment, she cleared her throat and sang, "I close my eyes and breathe next to your heartbeat. And now, we are the only ones left on earth." The melody was melodious, and every note carried Gu Mingming's sweet feelings at that moment. Her fingers gently tangled with Elvis's ink-like long hair, twisting it in her hands before releasing it slowly. When she sang, "Love you, love you, love you, we will always be together," she even paused and secretly kissed Elvis's lips before continuing to sing. She would not ask Elvis why he suddenly wanted to listen to her sing, because she did not ignore the word "also" that Elvis said. After coming to the beast world, Elvis was the 3rd person who could make her open her mouth to sing. The first was Sandy. Guo Jing's Dowry had already become her exclusive song. The second was Leah. She did not expect him to sing the song. A little luck back then to suit the situation. Elvis naturally would not use the word "also" on Sandy. He was definitely referring to Leah. When Gu Mingming finished singing this song, Elvis seemed to have heaved a sigh of relief. How afraid was he that Gu Mingming would reject him and not sing a song for him? How afraid was he that Gu Mingming would sing a sad song again? But luckily, Elvis hugged Gu Mingming back into his arms and asked, "What's the name of this song?" Gu Mingming replied, "This song is called Love You. The original singer is Chen Fangyu. When I first heard it, the variety shows in Taiwan could still be watched in the Celestial Empire. She went on the variety show to do publicity. She had a small stature, but her explosive power was shocking. She was definitely in the opening song series. But when I listened to the official version, it was not as infectious as the live version. But it was still very nice to listen to." Elvis still did not understand a large part of Gu Mingming's words. But even so, Elvis still felt very happy to see her talking about her past with such vigor. The past that he didn't have the chance to participate in, even if it was just a little, made him feel a little closer to her. Crack crack. An inharmonious voice sounded. Gu Mingming did not notice it, but Elvis's entire body tensed up. He pulled over a beast's skin and wrapped her up. Then, he looked at the direction of the cave with his guard up while saying, "Hide in the cave where we store our salted fish. Unless I come to fetch you, don't come out no matter what you hear or see." Gu Mingming did not know what was going on, and was confused by Elvis's nervousness. She turned around and asked while being hugged by Elvis, What's wrong? What's going on? Why did you hide it?" Chapter 235. Gu Mingming did not know what had happened, but she decided to trust Elvis. Thus, she wrapped herself tighter with the beast skin that Elvis had wrapped around her body, and walked deeper into the cave. She sat at the place where the dried fish were stored, and looked at the frozen dried fish in the cave. She then looked worriedly at the sealed entrance of the cave. She could see things in the dark, but her eyes were not X-rays. It was impossible for her to see what was happening on the other side of the sealed entrance. Fortunately, the cave was not completely silent. A loud sound made Gu Mingming shiver. She was familiar with this sound. It was Elvis's wolf howl. Could it be that Elvis had transformed to make such a sound? What was going on? Why did Elvis suddenly transform? Could it be that it was the 15th full moon night? Was Elvis's wild beast blood awakening? Or split personality? Just like in Seven of Me, where Elvis with a violent personality appeared. Just as Gu Mingming's thoughts were running wild, she heard a loud bang. It was as if something had landed heavily on the pile of soil that Elvis had used to seal the entrance of the cave. Gu Mingming's head buzzed. No, Elvis was not the only one outside. This was the sound of a fight. Didn't they say that the snow had sealed the mountain, and no one would come out of their cave? Why would someone suddenly barge in? Gu Mingming was extremely worried. She laid on the pile of soil, and used her hands to dig at the sealed entrance. She desperately wanted to know what had happened outside. The soil that had been frozen at an extremely low temperature was hard and cold. Gu Mingming dug until her hands were covered in blood, before she managed to dig out a small hole that was the width of 2 fingers. Compared to the light, a gust of cold wind passed through the small hole faster. Gu Mingming endured the discomfort in her eyes, and squinted at the small hole to look outside. 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 9 ferocious wild beasts were fighting with Elvis. They were entangling and biting each other, and there were already 2 to 3 deep wounds on Elvis's back that exposed his bones. His flesh was flipped outwards and blood flowed out continuously. His black fur was dyed red by the blood, looking hideous and glaring. Gu Mingming instinctively covered her mouth to prevent herself from making a sound. She knew that Elvis wanted her to hide in the cave of the salted fish, so that he could use the smell of the salted fish to cover up her scent. And in this situation, if she appeared, not only would she not be able to help Elvis, she would also cause him to fall into a more passive and dangerous situation. Gu Mingming clenched her fists tightly and forced herself to calm down. She needed to think carefully about how she could help Elvis. At the other end of the hole, Elvis bit onto the hind leg of one of the enemies. With a forceful shake of his head, he tore the leg off the wild beast's body. Blood sprayed all over Elvis's face, making him look like a ferocious demon that crawled out from hell. The other party did not have the slightest bit of fear towards his partner's attack. Instead, he quickly replaced his position and continued to trap Elvis firmly in the middle. Chapter 236. Gu Mingming felt a wave of disgust. She retched twice but nothing came out. She could only squat under the small hole, and panted heavily, trying to calm herself down as quickly as possible. Originally, we didn't know that your cave was here. But just when we were almost frozen to death, we heard a magical and beautiful melody. Listen, it should be the voice of a female, that person said while revealing a greedy expression. His black and red tongue licked around his mouth. Then he started chewing on the leg bone that no longer had any meat left. Gu Mingming was shocked. Could it be that her singing attracted the enemy? Gu Mingming really wanted to slap herself to death. Why did she have to sing for no reason? Even if Elvis wanted to listen, she could just lie beside his ear and sing quietly. Why did she have to sing so loudly? Was it to show off her voice? Look at this, you've brought disaster upon yourself. At the same time, Elvis had already bitten off the throat of another wild beast. The head rolled to the man's feet and was kicked out of the cave mercilessly. The man nodded approvingly. Looks like we've met a tough opponent. Elvis transformed into a human, only maintaining his fangs and right hand in beast form. He had never fought like this before. This inspiration came from Li's fox tail that he revealed when he was coaxing Gu Mingming. Elvis spat out the dirty blood in his mouth and said, "If you guys only want food, I can give you some meat. Together with these two idiots, it should be enough for you guys to last till the next tribe." That man was also very curious about Elvis's battle form. He sized him up for a long time before saying, "You're actually a half-orc? Looking at your moves just now, I thought you were at least a second-level beast in human form. I didn't expect you to be a half-orc. Good. That man suddenly laughed out loud and stood up. With a lewd expression, he said, "Why don't you hand over your female and let her break off the partnership with you? Then join us. Don't worry, I'm very fair as a leader. I'll return your female to you after I'm sick of playing with her. Other than the fact that you guys aren't bound by the partnership contract, everything else will be the same as now. How about it? Not bad, right?" Elvis stared coldly at the person who spoke. He was expressionless, the kind that did not have a single trace of emotion. He took a step forward, and the remaining 7 wild beasts blocked him. Both parties were in a deadlock, and the tense atmosphere was like the calm before the storm. Even Gu Mingming could clearly feel the dangerous aura emanating from Elvis. After transforming into human form, the 2 wounds on his back looked even more ferocious, forming a sharp contrast with his jade-white skin. Like a blooming poppy, it did not make him look weak at all, but instead made him look even more wild. The blood dripping down from his waist seemed to be announcing how dangerous its owner was. "If I kill him, you'll have another portion of food." Elvis stared straight at the man who claimed to be the leader and did not transform to participate in the battle. However, his words were clearly meant for the thugs surrounding him to hear. Chapter 237. The 7 wild beasts surrounding Elvis exchanged glances and slowly took half a step back. This meant that they had reached an agreement. Elvis glanced at them and nodded to express his approval. Then, he slowly walked towards the man who claimed to be the leader. That man also threw away the leg bone he was chewing halfway and stood up to stretch his neck. He was still smiling in an extremely disgusting manner. Gu Mingming swore that she had seen so many television dramas, but she had never seen an antagonist with such a repulsive face like this fellow. Sure enough, there was a difference between a real bad guy and a fake bad guy. Interesting. The man shook his head and transformed into a huge tiger, pouncing towards Elvis with a roar. Elvis dodged the tiger's attack sideways, and at the same time, he used his sharp claws to attack the tiger's abdomen. The tiger seemed to be prepared for it. Its tail, which was as thick as an arm, curled around Elvis's arm and swung it. The half of its body that was stretched out actually stepped on the wall and spun back, blood spurting towards Elvis's face. Elvis's lips curled up, and he actually smiled. The tiger knew that things were not good, but it could no longer stop. Because it was not his tail that had wrapped around Elvis's hand, but Elvis's hand that was tightly grabbing onto his tail. He actually sent his own tail into his opponent's hand. A second before the tiger got close to him, Elvis lowered his body and transformed his entire head into a wolf. He opened his mouth and used his sharp fangs to lock onto the tiger's throat. All his actions were fast, accurate, and ruthless, without a single bit of sloppiness. Crack, crack. 2 consecutive sounds of bones breaking could be heard, and the tiger's head drooped down in a weird position, hanging by Elvis's mouth. The murderous aura in Elvis's blue eyes had yet to fade away, when he suddenly realized that there was a small hole in the entrance of the cave that he should have blocked. The eye that peeked out from behind the small hole. He recognized it. His heart froze and Elvis loosened his mouth. That tiger fell limply onto the ground. The 7 wild beasts that were his accomplices just a moment ago pounced forward and started to divide the tiger's corpse. Elvis straightened his back and said coldly, "Saint Nazir does not welcome stray beasts. Take your food and leave. Otherwise, you will become my reserve food for this winter." The 7 beasts looked at each other. The reason why this tiger was the boss was because the 7 of them couldn't beat him. However, the black wolf in front of them had easily killed him. In other words, they were absolutely no match for him. The front paws of the 7 beasts were prostrating in a submissive posture. Elvis raised his hand and flicked his fingers twice, indicating that they could scram. Only then did the 7 wild beasts hurriedly drag the corpses of their comrades that had become food out of Elvis's cave. Accompanied by the howling of the storm, the sounds of the wild beasts fighting for food gradually faded away. Elvis and Gu Mingming stared at each other with that piece of soil between them. It was as if time had stopped working here, and they were in a state of being paused. "Elvis, you're hurt." Gu Mingming regained her senses first. She dug at the soil in front of her with all her might while saying, "Don't move, I'm coming over now. I'll dig through this place very quickly, don't move recklessly." Chapter 238. Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around Elvis's waist and felt a wave of warmth in her hands. Her eyes teared up and she said in a sobbing tone, "You're hurt, you're hurt." Elvis hugged Gu Mingming tightly, who was trying to break free from his embrace, so hard that he could not help but tremble. After a long while, he said in a voice that sounded like hot sand grinding against iron, "Don't leave me." Gu Mingming could not break free, and was so anxious that she started crying. She stomped her feet and wanted to punch Elvis, but was afraid of touching his wound, so she just waved her hands and said, "Are you an idiot? I'm already yours. Where else can I go? Let me go and let me see your wound." Elvis's body stiffened. He carefully held onto her shoulders and looked into her eyes. "Just now, you saw me kill that stray beast, right? Which one?" Gu Mingming was anxious to see the injuries on Elvis's back, but Elvis refused to let go no matter what. Gu Mingming was so anxious that she jumped up and down. I saw it. I saw all 3 of them." "You aren't afraid?" Elvis's expression was as if he was treading on thin ice. His blue eyes filled with uncertainty. Gu Mingming looked at Elvis, as if she was looking at an idiot. "If you don't kill them, they will kill us. I'm not Tripitaka. I don't have the hobby of improving the food of demons. Don't you think I'm cruel?" Elvis was surprised by Gu Mingming's answer. He clearly remembered how she cried when she saw others injured and bleeding on the day of her coming-of-age ceremony, when Leah was guarding the tower. He knew that she did not like violence, did not like killing, did not like blood. But she had just witnessed that cruel and bloody scene with her own eyes. The moment he met her eyes through the small hole, his heart suddenly tightened. He could almost see Gu Mingming's face of disgust, and he even felt that she might leave him because of this. But she said, "If you don't let me check the wound, do you believe that Lil Miss is crueler than you?" Gu Mingming steeled her heart and stepped on Elvis's foot, twisting her foot with force, saying, "Let me tell you, when I get angry, even I am afraid of myself. Hurry up and let go of me. I want to check your wound." Gu Mingming's little strength was nothing to Elvis. However, his heart was so warm. Gulp, gulp, a resurgent heartbeat came from his left chest, and Elvis felt the blood that had congealed start to flow again. Hugging her tightly in his arms, he took a deep breath and said, "Xiao Meng, thank you. Thank you." With that, Elvis's body suddenly went limp, and he slid off Gu Mingming's body. Gu Mingming wanted to catch Elvis, but she did not have enough strength. The most she could do was to slow down his fall, to prevent a second injury. Elvis. Elvis, how are you? Don't scare me. Gu Mingming patted Elvis's face, but he did not react at all. What to do? What to do? Gu Mingming was so anxious that she was going around in circles. She should not have learned human resource management in the first place. She should have gone to a nursing school to learn nursing. Chapter 239. Gu Mingming nodded her head fiercely and said with a sobbing tone, Leah, hurry and save Elvis. Leah maintained his faint smile and stood at the cave entrance without moving. After a moment of silence, he opened his mouth and said, After all, we are love rivals. If he dies, it would be a good thing for me. Leah. Gu Mingming shouted his name with a hoarse voice. Leah was taken aback, and he almost could not maintain the smile on his face. This was the first time Gu Mingming looked at him with such eyes, and called his name with such a tone. For another male. Leah used 2 breaths' time to barely calm himself down before continuing. So if you want me to save him, you have to promise me 3 things. Gu Mingming clenched her teeth and said, All right, as long as you can save him, I can even promise you 300 things, not to mention 3. Leah nodded and took a step into the cave, saying, The first condition is that I want to stay here this winter. Before Gu Mingming could speak, Leah continued, Elvis needs to be taken care of. You can't possibly make me run around in this snowstorm, right? Gu Mingming looked at the howling snowstorm outside the cave and nodded. Elvis's cave is very big. It doesn't lack a place for you to sleep. Only then did Leah heave a sigh of relief. Then, he took another step inwards and said, The second condition is that when winter ends, the snow at the entrance of the cave will naturally melt. You have to sing a little happiness for me every day as repayment for treating Elvis. Gu Mingming wanted to reject him. She knew what this song meant to both of them. Leah had already mated with Nina, and she was already Elvis's woman. Was it appropriate for her to sing this song now? What was the point? But looking at Lee's if you don't promise me, I will leave now attitude, Gu Mingming clenched her teeth and said, All right, I will sing. Leah took the 3rd step forward and came to Elvis's side. He slowly squatted down to the same height as Elvis and looked straight into her eyes. The last condition, I want you to call me Daddy Leah every time you talk to me. Elvis nodded his head and said, I want you to call me Daddy Leah. Gu Mingming glared at Leah and said, You haven't taken enough advantage of me? Don't push your luck. Food, lodging, and entertainment services are provided. Our consultation fee should be considered quite a lot, right? Lee's gaze darkened, and there was a slight change in the curve of his lips. He could not help but clench his fists, but he did not dare to let Gu Mingming discover anything amiss. He tried his best to maintain the smile that she loved, using the calmness that she loved, to grind his heart into pieces and mark a cinnabar mole for her. He murmured softly, Once upon a time you and I were also we. What's the point of talking about this now? Just tell me, are you going to save him or not? Gu Mingming screamed at the top of her lungs. If you don't agree, I won't save you. Leah looked at Gu Mingming, not giving in at all. He wanted to know if she would agree to do something she was unwilling to do for Elvis. At that moment, Lee's emotions were also very complicated. He hoped that she would agree, but was also afraid that she would really agree. All right, Daddy Leah, Grandpa Leah, Ancestor Leah, I beg you, save my hubby. Gu Mingming hugged Elvis, who was covered in blood, and looked at Leah with determination. In her eyes, she could no longer find the infatuation, shyness, naivety, and liking him. Aside from the topic, thank you to the QQ reading baby, Xiao Wang, for tipping 100 reading points. And thank you to the little baby from the Portrait Academy Constellation Love XSD for giving this article a 5-star review. Then, Daily Group Expansion 4927792773. Originally, the group could only accommodate 500 people. But because I was lazy and did not want to open a second group, I increased the capacity to 2,000. So the problem now is the lack of management personnel. Chapter 240. Leah did not speak, Not because he did not want to, but because he could not open his mouth. These days, all he could think about was reuniting with Gu Mengmeng. He endured every long and difficult second, even guarding outside the cave for Elvis and Gu Mengmeng's mating. He could clearly hear her every moan, every cry of pain, and every time she felt pleasure. That was undoubtedly a form of torture. The only belief that supported him was that Elvis had finally become her first partner, so he could return to her side. As long as she was willing to nod her head, as long as she still wanted him, he could be with her forever. But the reunion that he had fantasized about countless times had never been like this. Her eyes could no longer reflect his image. Her expression was only one of rejection and resistance. That daddy Leah, that disturbed his heart in his dreams at night, was now like a sharp sword stabbing into his chest. The pain was nothing more than that. Leah suppressed his discomfort and checked Elvis's wound carefully, then did emergency treatment. He could clearly tell from Gu Mingming's expression how much she cared about Elvis. If Elvis had any intentions, he would undoubtedly lose her, forever and completely lose her. That night, Gu Mingming curled up beside Elvis and fell asleep. As for Leah, he sat quietly by their bedside for the entire night. The next day, Gu Mingming's first reaction when she woke up was to touch Elvis's forehead. Only after confirming that he did not have a fever, did she secretly heave a sigh of relief. She carefully lifted up the beast's skin and looked at the hideous wound on Elvis's back. The blood had stopped flowing, and the wound was showing signs of healing. There was no infection, thank God. Gu Mingming was about to boil some water to wash up when she saw Leah slowly walking in from the space near the entrance of the cave, where Gu Mingming and the rest used to stay. He leaned against the wall and said, "I've prepared the water for you to wash up. I've made grilled fish and potato soup for breakfast. Go eat some to fill your stomach first, in case you fall sick again, before Elvis wakes up." When Gu Mingming saw Leah, she was taken aback. Perhaps it was because she was still in a daze. Her mind was in a mess, as if she did not understand why Leah would appear here. Leah sighed and continued, "You know, to the tribe, females are far more precious than males. So once you fall sick, I will definitely prioritize taking care of you. In that case, Elvis's condition would definitely be more neglected. If you don't wish for Elvis's injuries to not be taken care of properly, you better try your best to take good care of yourself. Don't distract me." Gu Mingming patted her own face to keep her mind clear. Then, she nodded to indicate that she understood. She took an extra piece of beast skin and wrapped it around herself. The beast skin Elvis had previously given her to wrap her feet had also been modified into a pair of suggested leather boots a few days before those stray beasts charged in. Although it wasn't as exquisite as the ones on Taba, the material was solid, and it was warm and comfortable. Gu Mingming turned sideways and walked past Leah. From the start to the end, she did not say a single word to Leah. In the end, she was still unwilling to call him Daddy Leah, right? Not long after, Leah heard the sound of Gu Mingming washing up, followed by the sound of her eating. The corners of his lips curved upwards. Luckily, she did not reject the food because he was the one who prepared it. Leah slowly slid along the side of the bed and sat on the floor. He bent one leg against the floor, while the other was arched. Both his arms were casually placed on top of his own legs. His gaze was fixated on the spot where Gu Mingming had just walked away from. With his back facing Elvis, he muttered, "Congratulations, you've leveled up." Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling little Su Yinshi from QQ Reading for tipping 99 reading points. And thank you to the little darling G9G9 Hung from Xiaosheng Academy for tipping the recommendation votes. Thank you to everyone for using all kinds of methods to support Susu. I have seen every message you left, and I will remember every tip you gave me. Chapter 241. Elvis, who was lying on the bed, did not give her any response. Luckily, Leah did not seem to be anticipating Elvis's reply as he continued muttering to himself. "I saw those stray beasts that ran out. They fought each other because of the uneven distribution of food. In the end, all of them were severely injured and froze to death outside." Lee's voice was calm. as if he was listening attentively to the sound of Gu Mingming drinking her soup. His eyes were filled with gentleness, as if he could see the little person eating through the wall. It's impossible for them to hurt you. So, you purposely got injured to create an opportunity for me, right? As Leah said, he turned his head slightly to look at Elvis, who was lying on the bed. He smiled bitterly and said, "Thank you. And don't worry. There's nothing in this world that is worth me giving in to Gu Mingming. This time, I won't let her suffer anymore." After Leah finished speaking, he slowly stood up and walked out. Gu Mingming had already finished eating, and he was going to clear the dishes. Meanwhile, Elvis, who was lying on the bed, secretly turned his head to face the other side of the wall. Even though he could not see anything, he still did not want to see Gu Mingming being intimate with others. Gu Mingming. Leah walked out and saw Gu Mingming trying her best to pluck the snow off the entrance of the cave. The wound that she had painstakingly applied herbs on was about to bleed again. Leah grabbed Gu Mingming's wrist and frowned at her reddened fingertips, asking, "Are you trying to distract me so that I won't have time to take care of Elvis?" Gu Mingming pulled her hand back with all her might, not caring that her wrist was almost dislocated, forcing Leah to let go. Then, she placed her hands behind her back and turned her face away, saying, "It's just a small injury. I don't have to deal with it, and it will heal on its own. Just focus on taking care of Elvis. Don't worry about me." With that, Gu Mingming was about to walk into the cave to melt the snow that she had painstakingly plucked into a pot before heating it up, so that she could wash the bowls after she finished eating. But before she could take a step, Leah grabbed her shoulders from behind. He did not hug her, just held her shoulders with both hands, and prevented her from leaving. "What are you doing?" Gu Mingming twisted a few times and realized that she could not break free at all. Moreover, she would not be injured no matter how hard she struggled in this position, so she could not force Leah to retreat. Leah didn't reply, and just held Gu Mingming in place until she gave up struggling. He then said, "If you just want to wash the dishes, you can leave it to me. It's natural for a male to take care of a female. You don't have to hurt yourself just to argue with me." Gu Mingming rolled her eyes and sneered. "It's an illness to think too highly of yourself. You have to be cured. If you hadn't quarreled with me, you could have left the cutlery here, as before, and waited for me to clear it." Gu Mingming took a deep breath and said slowly, "I don't have the habit of letting other males take care of me. Mingming, if there's nothing else, please let go. I still have to take care of Elvis after I'm done washing the dishes." Leah could not loosen his grip. The touch he yearned for day and night had finally come true. How could he dare to let go? He knew very well that as long as he loosened his fingers, she would slip away. If he wanted to touch her again, how difficult would it be? Out of topic. Chapter 242. Leah said with a trembling voice, "In my name, I swear to the beast deity that I will pledge my loyalty to you for the rest of my life. From today onwards, only you are my deity, my life, my everything." Gu Mingming's body was so stiff that she could no longer move. Even breathing became difficult, let alone struggling. She thought that she had shed enough tears for Leah. She thought that she would not cry for him anymore. But at this moment her eyes were still red. Leah slowly inched forward until he finally filled her in his arms again. That warm touch made him feel as if his skin was scalded. Pain, suffocating pain. The blood in his entire body seemed to have frozen at that moment. His eyes, ears, mouth and nose. All his senses were focused on her tiny figure and nothing else. Leah buried his head into Gu Mingming's neck, his voice trembling uncontrollably. No matter how much he wanted to maintain her loving smile, he could not succeed in the end. "Do you think that the words I said back then were all fake? I have never been someone else's male, never. Gu Mingming, I beg you, at least take back this sentence, all right?" Gu Mingming stubbornly wiped away the tears on her face and stepped on Lee's foot forcefully, trying to force him to let go. Leah snorted, but his hands did not move at all. He was still hugging Gu Mingming tightly, stubbornly refusing to let go. Gu Mingming trembled and took 2 deep breaths before forcing herself to speak again. She said word by word, "It no longer matters to me whether you are someone else's male or not. Because I am already someone else's female. This is a fact that cannot be changed. Pain. Every cell in his body was frantically transmitting the message of pain. Lee's instinct to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages made him want to turn around and escape. But it was as if his legs were rooted to the ground, and he could not move an inch. He did not want to let go. He did not want to let go. Because he knew better than anyone how much regret, how much suffering, and how much worse it would be to die after letting go. He would rather be in pain. He would rather be sliced to death by her words one by one than to let her go, and then die with endless regret. If I'm really just indifferent to you, then just accept me. Leah rubbed Gu Mingming's neck gently, using his face to feel her skin and her temperature. He was so eager to prove that the person in his arms was the real Gu Mingming, and not an illusion that he had imagined in the countless moments when she was not around. Elvis took good care of me, and I lived a happy life. On account that we used to be in a relationship, please maintain the demeanor of an ex-boyfriend, and don't disturb my life. Gu Mingming struggled again, but Leah seemed to have steeled his heart, and refused to loosen his grip even a little. No, I don't want to be a gentleman. I want you. You can't afford it. Gu Mingming screamed at the top of her lungs. Don't play the prodigal son game with me. Let me tell you, I, Gu Mingming, don't want things that have been touched by others. Leah shook his head, and suddenly turned Gu Mingming's body to face her. His usually affectionate eyes were now filled with uneasiness and pleading, unable to ignore the mist in his eyes. His brows furrowed into a dead knot, and the pain in his heart made it hard for him to breathe. But even so, he still tried his best to smile. Other than you, I won't let anyone else touch me. This body, this soul, this heart, they all belong to you. Aside from the topic, I say, can you guys have some standpoint? When I was nice to Leah, you guys said that Elvis was too pitiful, and asked him to quickly take over. Now that I've let Elvis take over, you guys are saying that Leah is too pitiful. Who exactly are you guys supporting? You can't have your cake and eat it too. Consider your standpoint, and be more ruthless to the other. In this world, there is no sorrow greater than a dead heart, and no fortune greater than forgetting each other. Chapter 243. The last time Mina hugged my waist, I have already burned the beast skin dress that she touched. If you still feel that it's dirty, I will peel off this layer of skin from my waist, alright? As Leah spoke, he retracted one hand from Gu Mingming's shoulder. Then, he made his fingernails grow long and sharp in front of Gu Mingming, reaching towards his abdomen without hesitation. Gu Mingming did not suspect that Leah was lying to her at all. She knew very well how crazy and uncontrollable the males in the beast world could do for females. Almost without thinking, Gu Mingming had already grabbed onto Lee's wrist with both hands, preventing him from hurting her. Leah suddenly smiled. His smile was so joyful and humble. Tears welled up in his eyes as he asked carefully, "You still feel heartache after all, right? You lied to me when you said that I don't care, right? You purposely gave me the cold shoulder, ignored me and made me feel sad just to punish me, right?" Gu Mingming turned her head to the side and did not look at Lee's expression. Looking at his face that was close to despair, she did not know how long she could be tough for. She wanted to retract her hand, but Leah held on to it. He took a deep breath and slowly transformed his white and fluffy big tail. He carefully wrapped it around Gu Mingming's waist and pulled her towards him. With his two empty hands, he held onto Gu Mingming's hands with one and lifted her chin with the other. That pair of narrow and affectionate eyes stared straight into Gu Mingming's pupils. The deep emotions in his eyes swept over like the ocean, not allowing her to escape. "Don't blame me, don't hate me," completely erasing me from your memory, as if we had never met before, is the cruelest way for you to punish me, right? Leah slowly placed Gu Mingming's hand on his left chest. He held back his tears and said, "I know I did wrong. I should accept the punishment. But Gu Mingming, my heart hurts so much, it really hurts so much. Let's change the punishment method, alright?" Gu Mingming bit her lower lip and refused to speak. Because she used too much force, her lips started bleeding. Leah was extremely flustered. In a moment of desperation, He kissed Gu Mingming's lips, using his tongue to pry open her pearly white teeth and replace her lower lip. Blood, wantonly mixed together. It was not clear whether it was hers or his. The pain that came from the tip of his tongue was unbearable. But how could it compare to watching her hurt him? If this was the new punishment she decided to bestow upon him, he would gladly endure it. Leah kissed until Gu Mingming's tears flowed down her cheeks and burned his skin. Leah slowly released Gu Mingming's lips and looked at her bloodshot eyes from crying. She was staring straight at him, but he could no longer see any trace of adoration in her eyes. I kissed you without permission. I apologize. Gu Mingming did not wait for Leah to finish and gave her answer without hesitation. Leah lowered his gaze slowly. His sadness had already exceeded the limits of what he could endure. No matter how hard he tried, it was impossible for him to pretend that nothing had happened. Leah was silent for a long time. Mingming, I don't want to apologize. I want to confess. I love you more than anything. Don't abandon me, okay? Gu Mingming struggled with all her might and successfully shook off Li's hand. But her waist was still circled by Li's big tail, and she could not break free. She placed her hands by her sides and looked straight into Li's eyes. I, Gu Mingming, am not a toy that you can have and throw away whenever you want. You were the one who abandoned me back then, so don't pretend to be hurt now. If you really love me that much, you shouldn't have abandoned me back then. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling from Xiaoxiang Academy, Roman Chamomile, for your evaluation votes. Then, I saw some readers say that I spouted too much nonsense in the author's words, so I tried my best not to be long-winded. Let me add on. All the content in the author's words is free and will not be counted in the paid word count. So don't misunderstand. Susu did not use nonsense to count the word count. On the contrary, the mini-theater and the author's point of view content written by Susu in the author's words are all included as free content. If these independent mini-theaters were to be placed in the main text, it would be a little abrupt, so they are placed separately. I hope you guys will like it. Chapter 244. Gu Mingming squeezed every word out through her clenched teeth. She pointed at the large tail wrapped around her waist and said coldly, "Let go of me, or else I have 10,000 ways to make you regret." Such as? Leah calmed down when he saw Gu Mingming's furious look. He was not afraid of her arguing or throwing a tantrum. Even if she wanted to kill him to appease her anger, he was willing to let her dig out his heart and liver. What he was afraid of was that no matter what he did, Gu Mingming would not have any reaction, as if he was no longer important. The fact that he still had the ability to make her angry was already a huge piece of good news. Gu Mingming had to admit that it was just a vicious remark that she blurted out. But after being teased by Leah, she had no choice but to come up with a plan to make him believe that she would really do something crazy. Gu Mingming suddenly laughed coldly and said, "For example, destroying your beloved tribe, hurting your beloved female, toppling everything you care about, except letting you live well. With me around, no one can hurt my beloved female." Leah caressed Gu Mingming's face gently and said with utmost tenderness, "Even if it's you, you can't." Gu Mingming slapped away Li's hand that was caressing her face and said, "Don't say that you love me, because you're not worthy." Leah did not say anything, and just looked at Gu Mingming quietly. Seeing that she did not continue, he then slowly said, "But, even though I know I'm not worthy, I still love you." Gu Mingming's heart went numb. She did not know whether she was still in love or not behaving like a woman. But no matter which one it was not something she could accept. Taking 2 deep breaths, Gu Mingming tried her best to extricate herself from this atmosphere that Leah had made look like the breakup arena. Gu Mingming looked at Leah and tried her best to speak in a calm tone. "I let you stay in the cave to treat Elvis, not for you to tease me. If you treat me like this again, please leave." She chased him away. Leah was taken aback. In the past, Gu Mingming had always stuck to him and would pounce on him whenever she saw him. Even when he went to Nina's house and did that act to make her sad, she still begged him to go home when she saw him. But now she wanted him to leave? Leah knew that he might have forced Gu Mingming too hard today. She laughed at herself. "Leah, who was the best at scheming people's hearts, actually lost his sense of propriety one day. Lowering his head, Leah finally let go of his tail and said with some grievance, "At first, I only wanted to help you wash the dishes." Gu Mingming looked at the cutlery that had long fallen to the ground. She turned around and said, "You can wash it if you want, it's just this once anyway. I won't eat anything you cook in the future." With that, Gu Mingming turned around and went deep into the cave to look for Elvis. Looking at Gu Mingming's back view, Leah suddenly lost all his energy. He sat cross-legged on the ground and hugged his large tail. After staying silent for a long time, he sighed and said, "Looks like you have also fallen out of favor. She used to like you so much, but now, she doesn't even want to look at you. It's me that implicated you." On the other hand, Gu Mingming curled up in Elvis's arms and buried her head into his chest. She started sobbing secretly and pulled Elvis's ear with one hand. However, she did not bear to use too much strength and could only complain while crying. "Why aren't you waking up? I really, really need you now. Why aren't you waking up to accompany me? Aside from the topic, why don't you let Leah come back every day? When I let him come back, you all cry, make a fuss and send me razor blades." Chapter 245. Elvis furrowed his brows tightly and clenched his fists before slowly relaxing them. He just quietly accompanied Gu Mingming, waiting for her to cry and fall into a deep sleep beside him. How many more times was he going to watch her cry for Leah? Pretending to be silent was the best he could do. Did he still have to personally ask her to take Leah as her partner? In the past, he could bear with the heartache and say such words. But now, he was ultimately selfish. After tasting the one and only bestowed by Gu Mingming, who would be willing to break it? He was not afraid of the dangers of the beast world. For Gu Mingming, he could shake the heavens and earth, become a deity or a demon. As long as he could protect her, he could do anything. But he was afraid of her tears. He could not bear to see her force herself to give up on Leah, even though she clearly liked him. As long as she could be happy, he could accept Leah. He definitely could. But why? Why was Xiaoming crying in his arms, seeking his warmth and support? Elvis slowly opened his eyes and used the beast's skin to cover Gu Mingming. Then he got off the ground and walked to the outermost room. Leah was still staring blankly at his own tail. Without saying a word, Elvis went up and punched Lee's face. Leah did not resist and flew out, crashing into the wall before sliding down. Wiping the corners of her mouth, she raised her head to look at Elvis, asking, "Are you angry because I wasted the opportunity you created? Or because you're afraid that after I really reconcile with Mingming, I'll split your love?" Elvis took a step forward and strangled Lee's neck. He stared coldly into his eyes and said, "I am angry because you made her cry again." Leah was experiencing the feeling of suffocation, but he just smiled. He did not seem to be afraid of the lack of oxygen, or even death. Elvis suddenly let go and turned to walk into the cave. Leah looked at Elvis's back view and asked in surprise, "You're not going to kill me? Or throw me out?" Elvis did not turn back, and just said with his back facing Leah, "I won't do anything that will make Xiaoming sad." After Elvis finished speaking, he did not stay any longer, and directly returned to the inner room. He started a fire, and set up a pot of ginger soup. He also wanted to be like Leah, and make lots of delicious food for Gu Mingming. But his talent was limited, and he really could not do anything. This was the only recipe that he would not mess up. Compared to the leftovers he saw outside just now, it seemed a lot shabbier. But this was the best thing he could prepare for Gu Mingming. When Gu Mingming woke up, a long time had passed. The moment she opened her eyes, she realized that Elvis had already woken up. She jumped up in joy and flew into Elvis's arms like a butterfly, hugging him tightly and refusing to let go. Elvis patted Gu Mingming's back lightly and said, "Sorry for making you worry." Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "As long as you are fine, I will be thankful. I don't care about anything else, as long as you are fine." Elvis's heart felt warm and guilty at the same time. Did he make Xiaoming worried because he pretended to be unconscious? What a pity. His difficulties were not worth mentioning. The energy I stored in third level was too much, so I lost control when I was leveling up. My body could not withstand the explosive energy, so I fainted. Actually, it's fine. Look, aren't I fine now? Aside from the topic. Chapter 246. She only heaved a sigh of relief after making sure that other than the wound on his back, there were no other abnormalities. She threw herself back into Elvis's arms and hugged his waist, saying, "You scared me to death that day. You were perfectly fine and suddenly collapsed. I thought I was going to become a widow after just getting married." Elvis shook his head and said, "You scared me to death that day." As Gu Mingming said, she punched Elvis in his arms and said, "Don't scare me like this next time. Do you understand?" Elvis let her do whatever she wanted. He felt especially blissful even after being hit. He nodded his head cautiously and replied, "All right, I won't scare you in the future." Gu Mingming hugged Elvis and took 2 deep breaths. Then, she suddenly remembered that Leah was still outside. She cleared her throat awkwardly and said, I let Leah stay in our cave." Before Elvis could interrupt, Gu Mingming had already sat up straight like a spring. She looked into Elvis's eyes and continued explaining in a flustered manner. "Don't misunderstand. It's not what you think it is." Elvis was taken aback and asked with a smile, "What I think?" Gu Mingming choked on her words. She pursed her lips and said, "No matter what you think, it's not what you think." "Oh." Elvis smiled and nodded his head, indicating that he understood. Gu Mingming held Elvis's hand and said seriously, "You were unconscious that day and covered in blood. I was terrified, and was especially worried that you wouldn't wake up. I was also afraid that those weird fellows would return. I was really helpless." Then at this moment Leah appeared at the entrance of the cave. "He agreed to treat you on the condition that he stays in our cave until spring. I thought that there was no reason for him to risk his life in the wind and snow to do something for us. So I agreed. That's all really, there's nothing else." I always believe in Xiaoming's words. Elvis held Gu Mingming's hand and gently caressed her uneasy face. She definitely did not know how guilty she looked. She was obviously speaking the truth, but she could not make it seem as though it was a matter of course. Gu Mingming asked carefully, "You aren't angry?" Elvis asked back, "Why should I be angry?" Gu Mingming twisted her fingers and said, "It's the matter of making the decision to let Leah stay in our cave." Elvis's heart warmed and he smiled. "The 2 of us have already made it, so strictly speaking this cave is yours. You can let whoever you want to stay in, and chase whoever you want to leave. No one has the right to question your decision, not even me." Gu Mingming tilted her head and asked, "Who says I can't?" As a couple, everything had to be discussed. If you feel uncomfortable, of course, you can say it. It was my fault to let someone else stay in my house. If it were me, I would definitely feel uncomfortable. I can understand if you are angry, but can you not be angry for too long? It was really a special situation back then. Elvis pulled Gu Mingming's little shoulders and looked straight into her eyes, saying, "I'm not angry, really not." This time, it was Gu Mingming's turn to be confused. She tilted her head and looked at Elvis, asking, "I let my ex-boyfriend stay at my house. And when you were unconscious, aren't you angry? Aren't you afraid that he's your next-door neighbor?" Next-door neighbor? Elvis did not understand. He was very sure that there was only his cave in his territory. Next door seemed to be the cave for storing dried salted fish. Was the salted fish nicknamed next-door neighbor Old Wang? But why should he be afraid? And even if it was salted, Leah was a salted fox. Why would he be a salted fish? I don't understand. Aside from the topic. Chapter 247. Gu Mingming rolled up her sleeves and said angrily, "Let me ask you, what if I lose control and pounce on Leah when you are unconscious? Aren't you worried at all?" Elvis thought for a while and shook his head, replying seriously, "If you want to keep him as your partner, I will support it. You don't have to worry that we won't get along well, because we have been adapting to this kind of life since a long time ago. So, if you like him..." Wait a minute. Gu Mingming looked up and made a stop gesture. She frowned and looked at Elvis, asking, What kind of life do you mean you have been adapting to since a long time ago? Elvis could vaguely hear Lee's hurried footsteps rushing towards them. Their years of tacit understanding made him deeply understand that he seemed to have fallen into some serious danger. Elvis clearly knew that in a situation where the enemy was in the dark and he was in the light, it was not wise to act recklessly. So he slowly took a small step back, then another step back. His eyes were fixed on Gu Mingming the entire time, not daring to blink even once. Leah braked suddenly outside the entrance of the cave, then took 2 deep breaths to make himself look calm. He then walked in and pretended to be nonchalant, saying, "Mingming, there are still 2 things you haven't done on the condition you promised me." Gu Mingming's lips curled up and she sneered. "Are you here to save the situation? This is this kind of life that you two have practiced and practiced?" Leah looked at Elvis, who was still in a daze and did not know what he did wrong. He really felt a heart-wrenching feeling of mourning for his misfortune and being angry at his incompetence. Taking a deep breath, he smiled. "Since when did we practice anything? It's just that Elvis is the tribe leader and I am the witch doctor. So we spend more time together. So naturally we are partners who have a better rapport." Gu Mingming stretched out a finger and gestured for him to keep quiet. Then, she pointed at Elvis and hooked her finger, saying, "Hubby, come here." Elvis instinctively felt that it was dangerous, but since Xiaoming was calling him, how could he not go over? So, Elvis braced himself and walked back to Gu Mingming's side. Gu Mingming stroked Elvis's face with a smile. Then, she suddenly pulled his ear and said, "We're both 1,000-year-old foxes. Why are you playing strange stories from a Chinese studio in front of me? Tell me honestly, what kind of life is this?" Leah grimaced when he saw Elvis's ears being pulled up. He instinctively covered his own ears. He could feel the pain even from 2 feet away. Elvis tilted his head and followed Gu Mingming's strength to tilt his face upwards. He gritted his teeth in pain and said, Xiaoming, Xiaoming, don't be angry. I'll speak, all right, I'll speak." Only then did Gu Mingming let go. She dusted her hands before wrapping them in front of her chest. Hugging her shoulders, she straightened her neck and looked at Elvis. "Speak," afraid that Gu Mingming would get angry again. Elvis covered his ears and said, "Leah said that according to the records, the chances of us getting the messenger of the beast deity is very high. In order to keep the messenger of the beast deity in the tribe and protect her well, the best way is for both of us to mate with the messenger of the beast deity. For this, we've lived together for many years to train our rapport and coordination, so that we can take better care of you after mating." Gu Mingming raised her hand again and interrupted Elvis's words. She raised her eyebrows and looked at Elvis. She smiled a little creepily and said, "When you guys were practicing, you didn't know that I'm the messenger of the beast deity, right?" Aside from the topic, the recommendation would start today, and it would last for 3 days. In these 3 days, there would be 6 chapters a day. After the recommendation ends, it would almost be on the shelves. So, little babies who are good at reading should hurry up and not save too many chapters. Then, Chapter 248. Elvis nodded his head honestly and answered, "Yeah, I don't know." Leah stood behind them and really wanted to slap him to death with his claws. Gu Mingming shrugged her shoulders and smiled. She sat on the ground softly and looked up at Elvis. Tears filled her eyes in an instant. Elvis was stunned and hurried forward to hug Gu Mingming. "What's wrong? Why are you crying all of a sudden? If you're angry, just pull my ears. I promise I won't hide, all right?" Gu Mingming pushed Elvis away forcefully and pointed at his nose, asking, "Tell me, do you like me or the messenger of the beast deity?" Elvis replied with a dumbfounded face, "You're the messenger of the beast deity." Gu Mingming kicked him and said, "What if I'm not? What if a real messenger of the beast deity wearing a Chilan armor and stepping on colorful clouds comes one day? When that time comes, will you not want me anymore? Won't you treat me well?" Sob, sob, sob. "Elvis, you actually don't love me, right? You mated with me because you thought I was the messenger of the beast deity, right?" Elvis was completely dumbfounded. He tilted his head and looked at Leah, who was about to sneak away quietly, saying, "Explain to Xiaoming." Tell her that she's the messenger of the beast deity. Leah sighed and patted Elvis's shoulder, saying, Elvis, you really deserve to die. Elvis completely did not understand how things had developed to this stage. Wasn't everything fine just now? Under normal circumstances, shouldn't the female be very happy when the first partner generously welcomed a new member? Why did his Xiaoming suddenly cry? Who could tell him what was going on? Leah took 2 steps forward and stood in front of Gu Mingming. He held onto Gu Mingming's hand that was pointing at Elvis and pressed it down. He used his other hand to gently wipe away Gu Mingming's tears. His smile was always gentle as he looked at Gu Mingming and said, You cry for another male so easily. This makes me feel very jealous. Gu Mingming waved her hand and broke free from Li's hand, saying, We're quarreling. Why are you a lodger butting in blindly? Leah was taken aback, and his expression dimmed. Taking a deep breath, he held on to Gu Mingming's hand again and said seriously, I will tell you everything you want to know, but you have to calm down first, okay? Gu Mingming wiped away her tears harshly and gave Elvis a look. Elvis then sat behind Gu Mingming obediently and pulled the corner of Gu Mingming's shirt carefully. He pushed the blame to Leah and said, It's all Li's idea. He can definitely explain it clearly. Don't be angry. Listen to him, okay? Gu Mingming gave Elvis I'll deal with you later expression and turned to look at Leah. Tell me what exactly happened. Looking at the interaction between Elvis and Gu Mingming, Li's heart felt like it was churning like a tsunami, but on the surface, he remained calm and said, You've seen Dumbo before, so you should know that I was the 9th highness of Sauter in the past. And Sauter is the messenger tribe of the previous messenger of the beast deity. Although the previous messenger had passed away almost 1,000 years ago, Sauter's position in the beast world is still very important. Do you know why? Gu Mingming shook her head. She had no intention of guessing, and did not want to use her brain. She just wanted to know the answer as soon as possible. That's because the previous messenger of the beast deity said before she died, 1,000 years later, the messenger will descend upon Sauter once again to continue the unfinished mission. Everyone was afraid of this last sentence. No one dared to make an enemy out of a tribe that serves the messenger of the beast deity. So Sauter has an even more resounding name in the beast world, called the messenger tribe. But as a prince, I know a version that the world does not know. That is, the messenger did not mention Sauter in her last words. Her last words were, 1,000 years later, the messenger will descend once again to continue the unfinished mission. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little baby from Xiaoxiang Academy, Liviel, for the flowers. Chapter 249. Gu Mingming frowned impatiently and lifted her chin. Get to the point. What has this got to do with me? What has it got to do with you and Elvis being in cahoots with each other? Leah looked at Elvis and then at Gu Mingming. He swung his furry big tail and said with a serious face, I am a fox, not a wolf, and Elvis and I did not have an affair. Gu Mingming almost lost her composure and coughed to hide her uncontrollable laughter. She patted her thighs and said, Don't talk about these useless things, get to the point quickly. Leah knew that Gu Mingming was not as angry as before after being teased by him. At least she had stopped crying. So he calmed down a lot and started to tell the story. Because of some reasons, I was chased out of Sauter, and no one dared to take me in despite the risk of offending the messenger's tribe. So I lived a life worse than stray beasts. When I was almost starving to death, it was Elvis who saved me and brought me back to Saint Nazaire. Leah paused for a moment as he looked at the cowardly Elvis behind Gu Mingming. It was really hard to associate him with that lone wolf from before. After living together for so many years, he had seen almost all of Elvis's brutality, tyranny and even unbearable side. But he had never seen. Even before today, he did not even dare to imagine that Elvis would have such a helpless and cautious side. This look felt like a lifetime had passed. Leah tidied up his emotions and continued, Saint Nazaire is the only place in the entire beast world where I can survive. So I have to protect this place no matter what, strengthen this place, and make it an existence that surpasses Sauter. Only then can I break free from the shackles they placed on me and obtain true freedom. And to surpass the messenger's tribe, The only way is to turn Saint Nazir into the new messenger's tribe of the beast deity, and let Sauter's glory become a legend, just a legend. Gu Mingming did not interrupt Li's words. She knew that the understatement of some reasons must be very serious. Otherwise, how would a prince end up being chased out of his tribe with nowhere to go? Gu Mingming quickly imagined the Qing dynasty drama of 9 dragons vying for the throne in her mind. She became nervous, and became even more focused as she listened to Li's narration. Leah did not know what Gu Mingming was thinking. Seeing that she was willing to listen, he was naturally happy. After all, she was not willing to talk to him anymore. Cutting open his own wound was very painful, especially a wound that had been injured twice. But if this was the only way to get close to her, Leah was willing to tear open that festering scar and expose his own flesh. I've deduced the records I've seen in Sauter, and know that the arrival of the messenger of the beast deity will randomly appear in one of the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The previous messenger of the beast deity came from fire, so this time, I excluded fire from my options. I was in charge of observing metal, and wood, while Elvis was in charge of observing water and earth. The lake you appeared in is the location of the water that I deduced. This is also one of the reasons why Elvis, and I firmly believed, that you are the messenger of the beast deity from the start. Gu Mingming frowned. She had a question she wanted to ask, but she felt that it was rude to interrupt someone else's story, so she put on a conflicted expression and suppressed the curiosity in her heart. Leah seemed to have seen through Gu Mingming's thoughts and said, "Ask whatever you want to know." Out of topic. Chapter 250. Since Leah had taken the initiative to ask, Gu Mingming did not stand on ceremony. Rubbing her chin, Gu Mingming asked in confusion, "Since we can deduce the location of the 5 elements from the records, why did the people of Sauter still search for the messengers of the beast deity? They could have just squatted down and waited." But Leah suddenly laughed and tapped Gu Mingming's little head, saying, "Do you think that anyone can understand those ancient books?" Gu Mingming's eyes lit up. Gu Mingming blinked her eyes and asked, "Why? Other than you, everyone in Sauter is illiterate. No one can read?" Leah shook his head and said, "We don't need to know the words in the ancient books, because from the moment we were born, our respective father beasts had taught us sentence by sentence. In the Sauter royal family, everyone knows the contents of the ancient books by heart. However, knowing does not equal to understanding, and understanding does not equal to being able to use it." Gu Mingming still did not understand, but did not know where to start asking. Leah sorted out his thoughts, then continued in a way that Gu Mingming could understand. "When the previous leader of Sauter was still in power, my beast father was the witch doctor in the tribe. Only he knew about praying, medical skills, and the deduction methods mentioned in the ancient books. And he only taught me, because if there were no accidents, I would be the next witch doctor to inherit his legacy. I should have followed the message left behind by the messenger of the beast deity, and welcomed the new messenger back to Sauter, so that the history that was changed by the tribe leader 1,000 years ago would become reality. But the accident happened so unexpectedly. I, the only person who knew how to deduce, was chased away, and no one in Sauter knew where the new messenger of the beast deity would descend. Their only way was to search everywhere, like searching for a specific leaf in the vast forest. But it was all in vain." Gu Mingming nodded her head, not really understanding, and accepted Li's explanation. Although there were many things that Leah had vaguely mentioned, but everyone had their own secrets that they did not wish to reveal. Some of the past was like underwear, worn, but no one was willing to show it to others. Out of respect, Gu Mingming did not ask for more details, and just waited for Leah to continue. Leah was very grateful for Gu Mingming's thoughtfulness, as it gave him some breathing space. Heaving a long sigh of relief, Leah then continued, "The arrival of the messenger is not a small matter. We cannot hide it forever. So before you come, Elvis and I plan to improve our rapport and abilities, so that we can work together to become the best partners. When the messenger of the beast deity descends, we will pledge our loyalty to her, and Elvis will become the messenger's first partner." As for me, as a family member, I will stay in the messenger's family to assist Elvis, protect the messenger, and keep her in Saint Nazaire. Gu Mingming was taken aback. She slowly lowered her head and sat up straight, leaving a gap between her and Elvis's chest. Even though there was a bonfire in the cave, Gu Mingming could still feel the chilly air. She did not look at anyone's eyes and just said calmly, "So from the start you guys approached me, with a motive, right?" Elvis was taken aback. Only then did he understand what trouble he had gotten himself into by blurting out this kind of life. He wanted to salvage the situation, but realized that he did not even have the confidence to say no. That time when he entered the lake deep in the forest, from the start, wasn't he aiming for the identity of the messenger of the beast deity? Digression. Chapter 251. If I had an ulterior motive when I first got close to you, then are you going to deny all my sincerity later on? Leah did not answer Gu Mingming's question, but asked her back. The reason why the Snow Fox tribe could gain the favor of the previous messenger was because of their secret fox seductive fragrance. Once it's used, the person who breathes it would sink into a beautiful fantasy, adding a lot of fun to the act of making love. No one in this world could resist the smell of the fox seductive fragrance. Even the messenger of the beast deity would be bewitched. I could have used the fox seductive fragrance on you after you became an adult, allowing you to mate while you were unconscious. When you woke up, you would only remember the pleasure and not notice anything strange. Gu Mingming's eyes widened, and she took a step back with her guard up. This step caused her to fall back into Elvis's arms. Leah maintained his faint smile, as if he did not notice Gu Mingming's guard up. He continued, "This should have been the simplest and most efficient method, but..." Elvis did not agree. He said he did not want to force you when you were unwilling. He wanted to wait for you to say yes. Gu Mingming turned around and met Elvis's furrowed brows. She had an indescribable complex feeling in her heart. She felt that Elvis was with her because she was the messenger of the beast deity, and this flaw in their relationship was the crux of her unhappiness. But Leah was right. From Elvis's point of view, not stopping Leah from using the fox seductive fragrance was the right choice. But because of her willing, he had rejected something that could have been easily achieved. Could she say that Elvis did not love her? If Elvis only wanted a messenger of the beast deity, why did he reject Lee's suggestion? Why did he have to wait for her to say yes? Leah gave Gu Mingming sufficient time to think, before continuing slowly. If he only wanted you to stay in Saint Nazaire, back then, with our development, mating was just a matter of time. If he did not love you, why did he? Enough. Elvis stopped Leah from continuing, and just hugged Gu Mingming in his arms. He sighed and said, "Xiao Meng, it's true that I came to the lakeside to fetch the messenger of the beast deity, and then met you. But my feelings towards you are also true. Trust me, okay?" Gu Mingming raised her head and looked into Elvis's blue eyes. That pair of deep emotions had never changed. But at this moment, Gu Mingming could not believe what she was seeing. Her voice was indifferent as she asked, "Apart from what you've just said, what else are you hiding from me?" Elvis pursed his thin lips into a straight line and met her gaze. He accepted all the questions and suspicions in her eyes, but refused to open his mouth to explain a single word. Gu Mingming wriggled her body, trying to break free from Elvis's embrace. She said weakly, "Enough, it's really enough. If you're not willing to tell me anything, why should I believe you? Tell her." Lee's voice sounded from behind Gu Mingming, carrying a lot of helplessness and despair. It was just a voice, but Gu Mingming could hear the misery in it. Anyway, she already hates me enough. She knows that it doesn't make a difference whether she wears one more or one less. Don't cause unnecessary misunderstanding because of me. It's not worth it. Out of topic. Chapter 252. Elvis glanced at Leah. He knew that Leah wanted him to push all the blame onto Leah alone, so as to maintain his pure image in Gu Mingming's heart. But he did not want to lie to Gu Mingming. After a moment of silence, Elvis finally opened his mouth. "Actually, The reason why Leah appeared at Nina's house previously was because he lost to me in a duel. He did not betray you. I forced him to leave. Gu Mingming frowned and asked, "What do you mean?" Elvis said in a low and slow voice. "At that time, you said that you can only have one partner, and you wanted to leave this place to live in Lee's cave. I knew that if I let you go, I would lose you forever. After all, I am not as loved by you as Leah. If you left, I would no longer have the chance to protect you. I can tolerate you having many partners by your side. I can also tolerate you not liking me, not caring about me, and even not remembering me. But I cannot lose the right to protect you. So that day, I went to find Leah for a duel, and the loser would leave you. Leah could not defeat me, so it's not that he could not defeat me, he just did not use all his strength." Leah interrupted Elvis's words and continued. Elvis had not leveled up then, and everyone was at the peak of 3rd level. You fought with your experience while I fought with my brain. Based on my understanding of you, it was not difficult to plot against you. But in order to make it realistic, I had to pay a huge price, and the outcome would definitely be a lose-lose situation. Based on your stance of wanting to fight me to the death, unless you died or I admitted defeat, this matter would never stop. So my judgment then was, I admitted defeat. Gu Mingming closed her eyes and slowly opened them again. She looked at Leah, then at Elvis. She swung her hand and gave Elvis a tight slap on his face. Then she asked calmly, "What do you treat me as? The spoils of war belong to the one with the stronger fist? Then what if the stray beasts that barged into our cave were not them, but someone stronger than you? Are you going to let them take me away?" Elvis shook his head and said firmly, "Unless I die, no one can snatch you away." Gu Mingming used a finger to poke Elvis's heart and said, "I have my own thoughts. I am a human. I am not a prize that you guys can fight over using violence. I mated with you because I love you, not because you're strong." Elvis nodded and hugged Gu Mingming in his arms. With a hoarse voice he said, "Xiaomeng, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Don't be angry, okay?" Gu Mingming let out a long sigh and asked with a cold face, "Do you know your mistake? Then tell me, where did you go wrong?" Elvis was like a primary school student who had just returned from a parents' meeting and was asked to stay behind by his teacher for a private talk. He said anxiously, "I shouldn't have challenged Leah to a duel. I won't duel with him anymore." Gu Mingming asked coldly, "What else?" Elvis cast a pleading look at Leah, but all he got was an envious look from Leah. If Meng Meng could also interrogate him like this, how good would that be? Unfortunately, he already did not have such qualifications. Chapter 253. Gu Mingming's temper was soothed by Elvis's coaxing. She smiled through her tears and poked his head harshly. She then slowly opened her mouth and said, "Firstly, you are not allowed to use me as a wager with others in the future, including but not limited to duels, understand?" Elvis hurriedly nodded his head and said understood, then shook his head hurriedly and said, "No, no." Gu Mingming frowned and said angrily, "Why not?" Elvis said, "In the beast world, when a male pursues a female, he has to challenge her partner. Only by winning her partner will he have the right to pursue this female. You are so beautiful. You will definitely have a lot of suitors in the future. If I don't accept the challenge, it will be regarded as me agreeing to let them pursue you. That won't do, no, no." Gu Mingming facepalmed. Was the concept of love in the beast world instilled by physical education teachers? Why was it so simple and crude? You can chase someone else's wife just because you beat her husband? Do you guys think you're bandits? Gu Mingming said, "You are sure that I am the messenger of the beast deity, right?" Elvis and Leah nodded together. Gu Mingming continued, "The messenger of the beast deity can set the rules for the beast world, right?" Elvis and Leah looked at each other and nodded in unison. Gu Mingming continued, "Damn it, from now on, the rule of males confessing their love to females has to be changed. A male who wanted to woo a female had to first express his love to the female. If the female found this male pleasing to her eyes, she would then send her own male to duel with this pursuer to determine the strength of the pursuer. Only then would she decide whether to accept the pursuer's love. The female doesn't even like you, so why are you fighting with her partner? Even if you beat a pig's brain, the female won't be interested in you. What are you wasting time for? Elvis looked at Leah, and Leah also looked at Elvis. Both of them did not speak. After all, this method of expressing one's love had been used for thousands of years. Changing it wasn't something that could be done overnight. Gu Mingming seemed to have seen through their worries as she patted Elvis's shoulder and said, "Let others do whatever they want. Here, that's the rule. If you want to hit my husband, you should at least ask for my opinion first, right? Even if you don't look at the monk's face, look at the Buddha's face. When you hit a husky, you have to look at its owner." Elvis felt that there was nothing wrong with what she said, so he nodded his head seriously and said, "All right, I will only fight with males that you like in the future. If he can defeat me, I won't stop him from pursuing you." Gu Mingming patted Elvis's shoulder, as if she had finally convinced the husky not to tear down her house. Seeing that Gu Mingming did not seem to be that angry anymore, Elvis felt that his answer was not bad. So he decided to press on with his victory and finish the rest of the questions while Gu Mingming was in a good mood. So he cleared his throat and asked, "Then, what's the second one?" Leah slapped his own forehead. Was he really suspecting that this retarded fellow in front of him was the real Elvis? How could the image of their family's wise, courageous, calm, and domineering patriarch collapse just like that? Although he wasn't good at scheming people's hearts, he wasn't stupid enough to chase after an opponent who had already given up and asked, "Hey, why don't you hit me anymore?" Chapter 254. Gu Mingming's back was facing Leah, so she totally did not know what he was thinking about. She was just very satisfied that Elvis did not try to bluff his way through, and just brushed her off. Yeah, his attitude was still very proper. With that thought, Gu Mingming's expression became much friendlier. She held Elvis's hand lightly, and said in a slightly reproachful tone, "Secondly, don't ever say things like I don't like you, don't care about you, or don't even remember you in the future. We are husband and wife, sharing blessings and hardships, sharing the same fate. We are one family, sharing glory and sorrow. We are people who will support each other till old age, and spend the rest of our lives together. How can we not have any relationship? We are related, we are very related." Elvis allowed Gu Mingming's little hand to poke at his chest again and again. Her little finger seemed to be dipped in yellow gravy, sending that sweet taste into his heart. Elvis held Gu Mingming's little hand and pulled her into his arms, replying gently, "All right, I will remember. I will never say such things again." Gu Mingming nodded her head in satisfaction, then said, "And thirdly?" "Yeah." Elvis nodded his head in response, waiting for her to continue. But Gu Mingming hesitated. She thought for a moment before slowly opening her mouth. What if I am not the messenger of the beast deity? You cannot abandon me." Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's forehead and said, "Silly girl, my mark has already been branded on your collarbone. I will never abandon you in this lifetime. If you are not the messenger of the beast deity, I will have to thank the beast deity. That way, I can hide you in Saint Nazir for the rest of your life, and you will not have to face those storms." Gu Mingming finally felt relieved. She tapped Elvis's chest and said, "You good for nothing. Isn't it good that your wife is the messenger of the beast deity? That's a rare position. You can get whatever you want. How awe-inspiring." Elvis did not think much of it and said with some melancholy, "But you also said before that the highest authority is called loneliness. You will worry that one day your son will suddenly reach out his claws to you, that one night your partner will suddenly choke you." But Gu Mingming smiled and looked up at Elvis, asking, "If you want to be the messenger of the beast deity, just say the word, and I will give you the position of the messenger of the beast deity. You don't have to strangle me." Elvis tapped her delicate little nose and said, "Strangling your neck is equivalent to strangling my throat. I will not do such a stupid thing." Gu Mingming thought about it and felt that it made sense, so she laughed out loud and started fooling around with Elvis. Leah stood up slowly and left. Everything in this cave room was bright and warm, but here, there was no place for him. Between Gu Mingming and Elvis, there was no longer a gap for him to hide in. Leah could not help but think, did Elvis have the same feeling when he and Gu Mingming were being lovey-dovey? Leah disappeared into the darkness of the cave. With only a wall separating them, he could clearly hear Gu Mingming's laughter, but it made it seem even colder. Elvis took out a piece of beast skin from the pile at the side. He recognized it as he had personally picked them out one by one and handed them to Elvis before winter. He was looking forward to these beast skins being able to warm Gu Mingming in the cold winter. But he did not know if these beast skins could also warm him. Chapter 255. In the next few days, the three of them coexisted in a strange harmony. Everything between Leah and Elvis was like yesterday, with all kinds of tacit understanding. On the contrary, Gu Mingming felt as if she was a third party interfering in the relationship between the best gay friends. For example, when Gu Mingming opened her eyes early in the morning, she realized that she was hugging a beast form Leah nestled in Elvis's arms. She screamed in horror and kicked Leah onto the ground. Then, she saw Leah slowly climbing up from the ground with his buttocks still on the ground. He rubbed his eyes with one hand and rested his other hand on the side of the bed, looking at Gu Mingming with sleepy eyes. His large furry tail swayed behind him, looking as innocent as a samoyed that had been abandoned by its owner. You, why are you sleeping on my bed? Gu Mingming grabbed the beast's skin and hugged it in front of her chest, questioning him with a face full of anger. Leah shrugged his shoulders innocently and said, "It was too cold, so I came in to sleep." Elvis was also woken up by the commotion. He hugged Gu Mingming from behind and said with a hoarse voice and lazy tone unique to the morning, "I let him in. His fur is much softer than a wild beast's fur. I thought it would be more comfortable for you to hug him." Gu Mingming's face was filled with question marks. She turned to look at Elvis and thought to herself, "Brother, you are so open-minded." Leah took this opportunity to climb back onto the bed and used his large tail as a blanket to cover Gu Mingming. The two of them then squeezed into Elvis's arms. Leah closed his eyes and said with a sleepy look, "I'm too tired from last night's torment. Let's sleep a while more." There were 10,000 divine beasts galloping in Gu Mingming's heart. Why did Lee's words sound like they were having an affair? Pushing Lee's large tail away, Gu Mingming flipped over and rode on Elvis's waist. She placed both her hands on his chest and asked, "What did you do with him when I was asleep yesterday?" Elvis held onto Gu Mingming's waist and flipped her over to place her back between him and Leah. He placed his large hand on Gu Mingming's waist and said lazily, "Sleep for a while more. I'll tell you when I wake up." Leah covered Gu Mingming's body with his tail again in tacit understanding. Then, Gu Mingming was forcefully sandwiched in the middle by Leah and Gu Mingming, listening to the even breathing above her head. Meow meow, the two of them actually fell asleep. Gu Mingming stared at him helplessly as countless indescribable images of Elvis and Leah surfaced in her mind. She clearly remembered that she thought Elvis and Leah were a couple right from the start. F***ck. In the years I wasn't here, these two. Could it be? F***ck. Finally, the two of them woke up and kissed Gu Mingming on both sides of her face, as if they had discussed it beforehand. Then Leah got off the bed and went to the room closest to the entrance to boil some snow water for Gu Mingming to wash and cook. Elvis carried Gu Mingming into the deeper part of the cave to get new clothes for her to change into. Gu Mingming felt as if grass was growing in her heart as she asked Elvis for a long time, "What did the two of you do last night?" You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.